This meeting is... Yes, we're just having some technical... Like the meeting is being electronically available via... Quorum, Peter Clay, Rick Woodland.
I've turned my mic off.
I can only hear like every third word.
Yeah.
You've got to sign into Zoom without volume.
You have to mute on your...
It's not your computer volume, it's this.
That's right. Okay, try it now.
Okay, let's try this again. It's now 6:32, so this is a meeting of the Wenham Planning Board.
I can only hear every other third word, and now I can't hear anyone at all.
Okay, can you hear us now, Ann?
Yes.
All right. So, we're calling this meeting to order. The meeting is being recorded. Ann Weeks is participating remotely. Peter Clay, Rick Woodland, and I am Dan Pasquarello. Having a quorum, we will begin the meeting. As a convenience to the public, this meeting is being electronically available via Zoom. In the event of a technology failure, the meeting will continue in person only. So I think the first thing on...
What's happening here? I think it's good.
We good? Okay. The first thing on the agenda is a planning board working session to discuss the MBTA community regulations. We had a discussion about this last week, I think. We had a memo, the technical memorandum number 2, dated June 15th, that I think members of the board were going to review and we were going to discuss tonight. Does anybody want to open the discussion on the MBTA? Margaret, do you want to say anything? Or I'm happy to if you don't want to.
Sure. No, there were a couple of questions that you had last week that I did a little bit of research on to try to come up with some answers. One of the things we were looking for visual graphics showing what density looked like, and I sent you all a link to it's like a video that was put together I think through Mass Housing Partnership. Judy Barrett had done it, and she actually shows examples of developments and what their density is. I don't know if you all got an opportunity to look at that.
I went through it. I thought it was very helpful.
Yeah. Okay.
It showed like 15 to 12 to 15 per acre, and then more.
I did.
I thought that was very helpful to start showing the public what the densities look like.
Okay. All right, great. And we also asked about a timeline for master plan, MBTA, and planning board. Rick and I did talk about that, and Rick's come up with an example of something that we're going to try to use, and I'll try to work on it next week and put it together. So we're simply going to list the projects like MBTA and MPAC, and then we'll put the dates, and then we'll put the dates that meetings are going to take place, what deadlines are for MBTA. We can put deadlines for adoption, town meeting dates, things like that. And I'll send it all to you. It'll be in Excel. Do you think we should do Google Docs, Rick?
You can do whatever you want. I have both, so I
Yeah.
can convert from one to the other.
Okay.
So it,
Does everybody like Google Docs?
No.
No? Okay. Do you have something you prefer?
So can we discuss what the timing is going to be on this before we just...
when we talk about the format, and then we can talk about that. So
Yeah.
maybe-
Yeah.
So my thought with this is, we have 3 major projects going on. One of them is the MPAC, one of them is the MBTA communities. The third one is going to be a general zoning review, and they all have separate deadlines. So the idea is to show them on a critical path, on a very simple chart that shows, oh, this week we have to do this, this, and this. Oh, but if we put a meeting here, we're going to have to push this back because we need a meeting from this committee needs to tight. So just to get some management view into all these projects happening simultaneously.
That's fine, but I think we should work backwards on this, where I think what we have to decide first is, are we going to have the MBTA component ready for town meeting in April?
That's not what I was talking about. We
Oh,
can talk about that next.
okay.
I just wanted to talk about the format.
Okay.
And the idea of what it does. I agree. We have to get our drop dead date set, and then you start backing up from there. And this document will then hold all those dates for us.
It sounds like a good idea.
So we could just
Yeah.
present them, and we could give this to the select board if they want to know what's going on. Because they're going to be in these meetings as well sometimes, so they need to know what's happening on them, their plate. And I just think with all this workload, we also be able to do some labor planning. If we know we're going to have a big stress on Margaret, let's either adjust the schedule or get more help so that we can make it all happen.
Okay, I think that's a good idea too. We've got this half an hour for dedicated to MBTA tonight, so I think we should pick up one of the things that we want to do in the near term, which I think was a joint meeting with the select board. And I'll note that new selectman Ben Timon is here tonight. Welcome, Ben.
Okay.
I think that was Ann.
That was Ann. Hello remotely. So, Ann, do you have any thoughts on that? Or Peter, actually, you'd be perfect to weigh in on this because you know both schedules.
I like the idea that Rick has laid out, how to create basically a critical path chart for the three big things we're doing.
Which we've probably used in prior lives.
I have.
Right.
Yeah.
Keep it simple, so that everybody can access it if they need to, know how to use it. No, we looked at fancy systems today.
Yeah, we
And
did.
they were just way above our heads. I mean, it was
Okay.
not needed.
I spoke to the town administrator about setting up a special meeting with the select board just to discuss MBTA. So
Okay.
he's looking at their schedule and, I'll get back to you with that.
Okay.
What dates will work, and when we feel is best. Do you want to do it sooner than later?
I'd like to try to do it sooner than later. By the way, last night we had a meeting, not a meeting, we had an event with some of the larger landowners in town to talk about the master planning process. And there were a lot of questions about MBTA that came up, and we spent a fair amount of time going into what our requirements were, where we were in that process. There were a few select board members here as well, so some of them, I think, got a gist of it. I know, Ben, you weren't here. Anyway, that should hopefully push the ball forward when we do have this joint meeting. But do we want to talk about, I know David had questions last week about the different scenario. I think we all had questions about the different scenarios. So do we want to talk about
Yeah.
those in the memo?
I have that. I don't know how to put my hand up on the phone. I have one come up as well as I looked through in more detail both the technical memorandum and the various guidance documents and AG memos and the like from the state. So I don't know how you want to take all those questions. It sounded as though Margaret also has spoken to the town of Hamilton about where they sit. There was an outstanding question about that last week. And then there was a question about what happens if you run scenario, and I forget whether it was 2B or 3B, which takes that utility land out of the Larch Row area. And I don't know if that scenario was run in the interim.
No, I don't.
Or last week.
I think we only talked about making Boulder Lane smaller.
Right, that was
And not
3B.
taking that out.
Oh, okay. That relates to that's true. That relates to my question that's come up because of it, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. So maybe Margaret, you could just finish reporting on the outstanding work that you did in the last week.
Sure, yep. So I did contact Patrick in Hamilton, Patrick Ruffett, their community development, planning and community development director. They're a little behind us right now, and they have now contracted with Bowler Engineering, I think, is their consultant, so they're just getting started on the process. He imagines that they will be submitting their compliance the same time we do, probably before the deadline of December 2024. So there's not a lot to report there yet. They don't have
Okay.
they haven't gotten their technical memo yet, so.
So I had some time in a waiting room today, and I got to go through this memo again. It was great, but a couple of things jumped out. And Peter, you sat in on these working group meetings with the consultant. I think it will be useful for us to remember a couple of things about this memo. Is that this, it's the same consultant as our MPAC, or not our MPAC, our master plan consultant. But they're technically not our consultant, right? They actually work for the Mass Housing Partnership. So we have 4 scenarios here, and if you look at all of the scenarios, all 4 of the scenarios exceed what our minimum requirements are under this, under the MBTA regulations. So, yeah, so, and they exceed by a lot. I think the closest was something like 468 units, and we're only required to zone for 365 units. So I think it's important for us to keep this in mind, that before we even get to that, this is a state mandate that the state is making every town, every municipality, well, every MBTA municipality do. We're not doing this at our own volition. So when we look at these scenarios, I think we need to keep in mind what our minimums are for the town, which is we have to have a minimum of 365 total units. We have to zone for 24 acres total. Within the half mile of the station, we have to zone for 4.8 acres and have 73 units. And our density, minimum density has to be 15 across the districts. So none of these scenarios come close to what our minimum requirements are. They all exceed that, so.
But we do have the tool to figure that out, correct?
Okay,
I think we do.
the infant,
Okay.
I think that was the infant for 2B or 3B, whichever it was
Right.
that, okay, don't have, however many acres there are in the Boulder Lane area. What number of units do you mess with? And does it meet the requirements? And what does it have to look like? And then, relatedly is my question, when I go back and read the guidelines, it looks to me like that utility lot is not developable per the state
Yeah,
rules, state definitions,
right.
because it's utility property. And so I'm concerned that we not count it and then get all the way through to the end and discover that we can't count it. So I just want to put that on the table.
And how many acres is that lot?
It's not very much.
It's not very many. It's 2.
3, I want to say.
So it's not going to get us below the minimum.
Well,
not gonna get us-
it depends.
No, it's not enough for us to
Correct,
reduce
to the
below
lower-
the 100
below-
acre
thank you.
minimum in the developable station area. I looked at the,
Well,
rationale, oh, sorry, Ann.
I just would hate for us to have to do this twice. I would
Yep.
love for us to do this once and be done.
No, I
And,
agree.
and then hearing, oh, wait, that's not developable. And I think someone made a mistake somewhere, and I think it was probably the state. But I just want us to be mindful of the fact that that one parcel that we're including might not be something we can include.
So I read the rationale for how the state came up with this excluded land area. And we had to send the state our list of parcels. Each parcel has codes on them. So there's use codes, there's a parcel ID code and things. So that is all they go by. They go by whatever the town designates that property. That's how they determined whether it's part of a excluded land or not. I think that we would have to really go line by line with the state. I don't know that they're gonna do that and come back and say, we don't think that is developable, so you shouldn't count it, or, when I checked with them, they said they had no plans to redo this layer, to redo this excluded land area. And that's, we talked to the consultant about it.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ann?
Questioning any of that? I'm not questioning any of that.
Yep.
I'm just pointing out, read the guidance, excluded, the definition of excluded land. Item 7 is privately owned land used for blah, 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 such as wastewater or other utility, electric, water, you know, it's excluding
Yeah.
land that's used for utility purposes. So I just want us to be aware that that is a little potential glitch that we just need to be aware of. So when we're running numbers, maybe we don't include that 1.6 acres. Maybe we call it 4.63 or 4 point whatever instead of 6 there, and just run the numbers to make sure that we're not going to get stuck.
Do
That's
we
all
have,
I'm saying.
do we have it coded properly?
I don't know. That's one of the questions
I think
that
I would just check that to
come
make
up.
sure, if we have it coded properly and they accepted it, then we should be clear.
I think that's right. I mean, despite my opening comments about the consultant, I will say that they're the ones using the state metrics to determine what's excluded and what's not. They didn't create it. They used the state database, right? So,
We brought this up to them.
Yeah.
We said, are you sure that's not excluded? I think it's a gas line or
Right.
something.
and my concern with throwing that lot out right now is we're like halfway through the race, and we've done a lot of calculations in these scenarios for including that lot. So unless we absolutely have to, I don't think we should throw that one out.
I just think if we're coming up with a new scenario that doesn't, you know, way exceed the maxima or minima, that we need to do what I would, in my engineering think, would be, you know, a double check, you know, a fail-safe, just to take out that lot and run the numbers and make sure we still meet the minimum. And if that's the case, then we don't have to worry about it.
Well, unless we can split a lot, we're not going to hit the minimum then. The only way we'd hit the minimum is if we use the housing authority lot.
Right. And so, right. Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm just flagging it and saying, you know, I would run, you know, test case just to see what happens if that lot ends up not being included.
I know there are
And if
two-
we're still under whatever scenario we choose, then great.
I know
But
there
if we're not good, that's all I'm saying.
I know there are two attorneys in this room right now, but is this something that we should get KP Law's opinion on, this little point, so that we have some basis to go forward?
There's an opportunity to talk to the state. I have contacted them. They've been responsive. They have a helpline. They have, you know, places we can go. Town council has not really been as forthcoming with information about this because I don't think they've really gone into it yet.
Okay.
I think they may be waiting for some of these litigations to come to fruition and see where it
Yeah,
goes.
but, and in terms of running alternatives, I mean, I think we already know the answer, which is if we use both lots, it's 6.3 acres. If we don't, it's 4.65 acres, and we need to have 4.8. So, I mean, we can run things on parallel tracks, but I don't think we want to create new problems for ourselves that,
Not
that this.
suggesting just that this could be a problem in hiding, and we just need to expose it if so and deal with it.
Okay, but I think we should also take the approach that the state has told us we can use that lot right now, and unless they tell us we can't, I think it's still viable.
Yeah, I guess I would hate for them to tell us we can't, you know, on December 15th, 2024.
We'll know well before then whether what we're submitting is going to work, because these modeling tools will tell us that. Again, it's just based on what the state already says.
Yep.
And I was thinking that if it's easy enough to run the model, you would just run it with and without that
Okay.
small, and and see where you end up.
Okay, so do we want to have a discussion about the different scenarios and what we think we
Yeah.
want to push forward? Okay. Do you want to go first, Dan?
Well, I was wondering, it sounds like Margaret did or did not run the model?
No,
with-
I did not run it yet. I have to get the GIS layers from Goldson's. Catanese was the one who created those. So I realized I need to have the layers that pull out the land that's not excluded. And I don't have those numbers for a smaller parcel, so I'd have to create that layer. And so I have not had a chance to do that yet, no.
So do we want to talk about the scenarios we have in front of us, or maybe something else that's not in front of us, in terms of just a discussion amongst the board as to where we think this might go? Or what we prefer?
Well, I was wondering if we can back into that number. You said our number of units is not nearly as high as what all these are. Can we look at, I think it would be waiting for some kind of model to come out to say, okay, what is our real number and how do we back into that?
We know what the real numbers are.
Well, what I'm saying is that since these are all so high, should we be working on this scenario that comes closer to the actual number
Yeah, so
tonight?
to go backwards for a second, sorry, Ann, I'll come right back to you. To go backwards for a second, if you look at the summary tables in this memo, what the consultant did was they plugged in densities that were higher than what our minimums were, than what was required. In one place, it was like, for some reason, 20 units per acre over 30 acres, which we only need 365 units. That's over 600 units. I don't know why they were doing that. So that's why I wanted to preface this by saying the consultant was from Mass Housing Partnership. So every single scenario exceeds our minimum requirement. So if you look at, for example, if you took the Walnut large parcel, this, let's just call it 6.3 for a second, and if that were the only parcel within the half mile of the station, we need to have 73 units. So we'd need to have a density of 12 on those 6.3 acres. And then that leaves us with, I don't know, 280 something in change, if we're talking about our minimum, right? So, and we have to have at least 24 acres, so there has to be at least 18 acres elsewhere.
So Dan,
Yep.
if I understand you right, this memo is from Mass Housing.
Well,
No,
no, it's from our,
It's financed by
Mass Housing gave us a technical assistance grant, and then they connect you with a consultant, which they did. They connected us with Goldson.
right.
Whose general objective is more housing.
I think that might be a fair assumption.
So then why don't we just set that aside?
Well,
So Dan, can I put my hand up?
yep,
Where we got to at the last meeting is if you look at scenario 2, where, yeah, that's the one that's closest to the 365. And then we said, that assumes a lot of housing on Boulder Lane because there's a lot of land out there that's included in their method, right? But if you use some smaller amount of land at Boulder Lane, what the question then became, what would the total units be? Would it be closer to the 365?
Right.
And that was
Right.
scenario 2B. I thought that we were going to see how that worked out. And it sounds like Margaret hasn't gotten a chance to do that analysis.
well,
I have.
so Ann, if you go through the 4 scenarios, right, in the intro to each one of them, the one you're talking about, the first bullet point says this scenario is most closely aligned with minimum requirements. So, but that's still 489 units, and we only need 365, right? It is most closely aligned because it's the lowest number, but every single one of the 4 exceeds. This one doesn't say it exceeds the requirements, but it does, right?
Yeah, that's not, I'm trying to explain where I think we got to last time. I think last time we said scenario 2 is closest to the minimum. It includes all 5 or 6 or however many lots there are What if you used a smaller number of lots at Boulder Lane?
Yeah.
What
Right.
would the number, would it be even closer to the minimum?
Yeah, but
That's where we got,
scenario 2 doesn't use Boulder Lane at all. Scenario 2 is just the Housing Authority and Walnut. So I think it was 3B is what we were talking about.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, take everything I said and put it 3 instead of a 2. That's,
Okay.
Because we talked specifically about this lot, this lot being buildable, this one being swampy. We went back and forth. We can't use a partial lot if it's swamped. Yes, you're right, Ann. I remember it all now.
Yeah, the wetlands are excluded. They're not in the count. And Boulder has some other issues with it, which some of the lots are town-owned now, but as soon as we zone them multifamily, they will count. So they would be eligible. So, and I agree with you. I think we need to have numbers that are closer to what our minimums are. But looking at these scenarios, I think the one that is going to be closest to that is what we're calling 3B, which is if we use the Walnut Larch 6.3 acres and 18 or whatever closest to 18 we can use at Boulder, and then run those numbers to get near the 365.
yeah.
Are there other things we need to be doing with this Mass MBTA project that we're not doing, Margaret, so far?
No, I think what we need to do is have, I mean, I didn't think that in this half hour tonight we'd have time to really get into this any deeper. But I feel we do need to have another good working meeting where we can spend a couple of hours. We can plug in the scenarios, we can decide this parcel, and then if the board decides they want to present a particular scenario to,
Well, I think that's right. I don't think that we have come close to a consensus on the board because we haven't really had a discussion about the different models available to us. So I think we need to take that step. The question, though, for us right now is, do we want to have sort of an informational session with a joint meeting with the select board first, and then be informed by that, and then have our detailed discussion?
I feel that might be a good idea so that we can at least explain what this is about and the parameters that we're having to follow.
So they're not in the dark, so
Yeah,
that they
so
can,
that
because
no
they're gonna
one's in
get,
the dark,
they're gonna
yeah.
get questions too.
Yeah, so that,
No, that's,
yeah. And then share the
I
memo.
wouldn't, I guess I wouldn't want to present this memo as, here's the 4 scenarios we're
Right.
No.
considering.
No.
If considering another 1 or 2 that aren't in here. So we have to figure out what we're going to say about that.
Okay.
And if I'm remembering, I think what we said when we were talking about 3B was that because we can't split lots according to the guidelines, that we probably can't get 18 acres exactly. At Boulder, it might be 20 or 21, and that's what you're going to run.
Numbers came.
Yeah.
I think that's why the numbers were so big, because the lots are so
No,
big. We
that's
couldn't
not why.
count them.
I don't think that's why, looking at the memo. I mean, there were just densities that were plugged in that were way higher than we needed.
Okay.
And let's keep focusing on the numbers and the numbers as opposed to the scenarios and the locations. I think our best bet is to stay focused on the data and let everything else just kind of be its thing. That way we can just kind of stay above it all.
So do you want the 6 key numbers that we
Sure.
need to do for this? Okay, so here are the 6 key numbers. Wenham has 1,460 dwelling units in our housing inventory. We are required to zone for 25% of that, which is 365 total. These are the minimums. We are required, because we have 112 developable acres within the half mile of the train station, we are required to have a total area of 24 acres zoned. Of those 24 acres, 20% must be within a half mile of the train station. That's 4.8 acres is the minimum. Within the half mile radius, we have to have a minimum of 73 units, which is 20% of our 365.
Hold
whole bunch of other stuff.
And the minimum density per acre has to be 15 dwelling units per acre across the whole 24 acres. So it can be higher in
Can be
one.
higher.
It can be higher in one area and
But it should
lower in
average
another.
out to 15.
But it has to average out to 15. So the six numbers are 1460, 365, 24, 4.8, 73, and then 15 units per acre.
Yeah, that's great. So that, when you, Margaret, so when you get to use this facility, this modeling tool, those are your numbers, and
Yeah.
Kinda
yeah,
what it
those
tells
numbers
us.
are already in the
Yeah.
tool, so we just have to say, how does this one work? How does
use
that
this
one
lot, use that lot.
Yep. And I can devote Tuesday to getting that, if I can get in touch with, Cadenies.
So to wrap this up, this is going to go back to scheduling with the select board, it sounds like, is our next step.
Okay, so you want the next meeting that we discuss this to be with the select board?
I think we should have the informational joint meeting.
Yes, just informational, maybe even not just talk about if we are ready to present a scenario, but I think it's complex enough just understanding the different buckets you have to fill, and that would help them understand the complexity of the situation.
Okay. All right, I will, make sure Steve and I get together early next week and set a date.
And then I think we do need to have another working session with the planning board where we start hashing out where do we think more units should be, or how many are we comfortable in what area?
Okay.
And then we'll start plugging those dates, Margaret, you and I, on that Excel spreadsheet.
Yep.
So that, I think it'll start making sense to people
Okay.
when they see these.
Can we go back to that just a minute? So you think you just want to use an Excel spreadsheet? And how do you want to share it? You're not a fan of Google Docs. Do you want me to?
I think it
leave
should be
up?
probably view only. Maybe you keep the original and then just publish it to a PDF.
Okay.
That's fine.
Send it out every so
Every time
often.
it's amended.
Okay. All right.
It's a great idea.
And
Okay,
you keep
Ann,
control.
do you have anything further on, are you on the screen, Ann? No,
No, just.
no,
our
just your phone? Okay.
number, yeah.
Ann, did you want to add anything else?
Somebody to do screen up here. I don't have anything else on this. I think the sensitivity analysis question of, if you take a lot out here, put a lot in there, how does it change the numbers? If we have the ability to do that kind of analytics, it doesn't take, a year and a day, I think we should do it.
Okay.
Just to know what you're dealing with.
If by we you mean Margaret, then yes.
I'll get
Well,
on it.
right.
Okay. All right,
Probably more fun, if that's what your point is, yeah.
Peter, anything else on MBTA?
Nope.
Rick?
No?
Okay, so next item on the agenda is master plan presentation of the vision and goals draft by our consultant, J.M. Goldson. Welcome.
Hello, thank you.
Jen, I don't think you can connect to this while I'm connected with the OWL.
So,
wanna
what do you want me
send
to
me it?
do? Sure.
Your presentation?
I can move. I can go sit over there.
There's a-
No, it's not that. We need her presentation on the screen. It's got
Oh.
nothing to do with who's.
Can I
where.
send it as a PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. I think that's how this will work. I haven't done it
Air conditioning
with somebody
and-
else's.
Or do you want me to connect to Zoom
how to
and
turn
then
it
I
on
can
also.
share my screen?
It's that thing?
Do you want to try that first?
Yeah, I just don't have the Zoom link.
It's right on the screen, on the agenda.
Okay.
Want me
It's
to?
on the town website.
No, Rick, on the wall.
Oh, on the wall.
No, back this way.
No, it's not working.
No. Keep your
Oh,
meeting
good.
short.
I've called technical support and it's not working, so hopefully we won't go too,
That's how we're going to expedite the meeting, Jen. No air conditioning.
I know, and I,
We'll get so uncomfortable.
When the mascara starts running, let us know. We'll close that.
I know it's time to go. Okay, so.
Actually, before we start, we're going to lose Ann, right? Early?
I think so.
Ann, are we going to lose you early?
Already lost.
You're on mute, Ann, I think.
No, she's not.
Oh, she's not?
Ann, can you hear us? All right, let me see, Jen's coming in.
We lose Ann?
Yeah, I don't see
She's
her.
going.
She's gone.
Oh, yeah, she hung up. She is gone.
Oh, all right, I was gonna ask if she had any.
Nope, wait.
There she is.
No. Do you have her
I got
muted?
me,
Oh, yeah, there you are. That's, yeah, we were
Okay.
asking for you.
Ann, you're still there?
yeah, I'm here.
Bef-
What's
bef-
up?
we're losing you early, right?
Beg your pardon?
We're losing you in about 20 minutes or so.
7:30, yes.
Before we start the presentation, did you have anything on the minutes you wanted to provide?
I do not.
Okay.
Mostly because I have no service here, and so I haven't looked at them.
Margaret, if you make me co-host, I can go ahead and share my screen.
Okay, let me do that. All right, I'm gonna,
Now, I'm on mute because I'm on this, right?
I think so.
So I'm on mute on Zoom, and I've turned my sound off, so hopefully that will,
Our technical person might be able to answer that question.
that's correct? Okay, great.
okay, so I'm gonna make you the host.
Just the co-host, oh, okay.
Yeah, it doesn't give me co-host option.
Oh, it doesn't? Okay.
No. So,
Well, when I sign off, we need to make you
Yeah,
host.
you'll put me
Okay.
back on.
All right, don't worry, we'll get this all sorted out.
I am.
And tell them where you were all day, Peter.
But I wasn't dressed like that. I was in shorts.
Okay, I did just share my screen, so is there a way to get it up
Yep.
on?
I
okay,
will, yep,
great.
hold on. I think I can. Oy, okay. You know what? No, I don't think that's gonna work. Damn it. Try,
Oh, yeah.
okay, and then I'm gonna move this back. How's that?
That's great. I
Wow.
think that's great. So I think everyone on Zoom can see the presentation still. Zoom people, let us know if you're having trouble, but it looks like it's shared properly and we have it so everyone here can see as well. Yay, okay.
Kirsten, can you see that on your screen?
Yes.
Okay,
looks
great.
good.
Perfect.
you.
All right, great. So I think I'm ready if you're ready for me.
Yes.
All right, great. So I'm Jen Goldson, planning consultant. I'm really excited to be here. It's the end of phase 2 of the master plan. And you know, at the end of each phase, we like to present to you all so that we can update you on what's been going on, what did we learn, what did we do, and where are we now, and then where are we going into phase 3. So we'll talk about that, and I'm glad to see some folks here who are interested in the process and who are members of the Master Plan Advisory Committee. So we'll share the draft community vision and goals, and I emphasize the word draft. This is a time for public comment. We did get, I think, just a few comments in writing, and I think I'd just ask if the planning board is willing to take some public comments tonight as well as part of the record, and then of course give your own comments to us as well as if you would like to see anything changed. And then we want to share those next steps in the process. So first, before I share the draft vision and goals, I want to just say a little bit on the community engagement. Phase 2, you may all remember, is a very strong focus on community engagement. And Wenham did an amazing job, actually. You guys are a small town. You have, we call them participation points because many people probably did more than one thing. How many in this room did more than one of the things? We have the survey, a meeting in a box, and the crowd map. Raise your hand. Yeah. Yeah. So that's why I say participation point, because this is not people. This is how many times did we get people to participate. But that represents over 12% of your population, if you just look at those participation points. So that's great. And it's better than some of the large towns we work in. So you should be impressed. I'm going to go over a little bit of these results just in brief, but we did distribute an engagement summary along with lots of detailed transcriptions and whatnot, which is part of the public record. If people in the audience haven't seen that, I'm sure you can get it if you want it. And I do happen to have one that I printed out in my bag. I'm happy to actually pass that around. Would that be something you guys are interested in? Seeing that now? Yeah? Okay. All right. Take 2 seconds.
Sure.
All right, so that's being passed around, and I'll just go over just briefly some of the highlights. So we started phase 2 in December.
Oh, what happened?
Okay.
Is it, this is,
Can you make sure you're on echo canceling?
Distorted from where I'm sitting.
we're back with the technical difficulties, Ann.
There's options for speakers. It should be echo canceling. Let me see.
Is it the Zoom mute?
Mics on your Zooms just need to be off.
Yeah, mine is off. Where's the echo? Where's the echo cancel?
I don't know. I think, so she's become, Jen, can you mute yourself on Zoom?
My computer is muted.
Is it?
Yeah.
And it's very distorted.
I'm not sure.
Margaret, is it your Zoom mic?
No, I'm muted. Think that'll
work?
Okay, that's better.
Oh, good. Phew. Okay, sorry about that. Some technical problems with the microphones, but I think we've got it sorted out. So hopefully everyone on Zoom can still hear us, and I know you guys can hear us. All right, good. So I'll go through each of those 3 engagement tools and just give you the highlights of what we learned. So for the survey, you got 264 responses. That's about 4.5% of Wenham residents, and that doesn't double count.
Did I lose you guys?
Oh, can they not hear us?
Can you hear us, Ann? I don't even know. I'm muted. Ann, can you hear us?
I can hear that. Yes, that's great.
Anne, can you hear when I speak?
Obviously not. Why don't you check with Kirsten again, because she's not in Vermont.
Okay. Kirsten, can you hear Jen when she speaks?
Hi, Kirsten.
Same weird reverb.
All right, I don't think this is gonna work, Jen. If you send me the presentation via email, I'll try to get it.
Oh, I know what I'll do.
Recording stopped.
I'll serve cookies and things to people.
Oh, shit. I'm sorry.
You
I didn't
stopped
mean
the
to do
meeting.
that. Because I was host.
Yeah.
Can you start it again?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, let me
There you go.
start. Yeah, give some refreshments out, this is gonna be a minute.
Take a bathroom break.
Everyone take a minute.
Planning board always does?
Yeah.
We've been shamed in the master plan committee, we're gonna do something else.
I'm just going to try to send it as an attachment because it's faster than creating a Dropbox. But if that doesn't work, I can
Oh, there are
create a
plates, too.
Dropbox.
Well, last time
come on,
you had
Rick.
fancy food, I get it.
All right, see if that goes through. It's over 16 megabytes. So
Okay, let's see if I can get it.
while you're looking, I'll just put it in Dropbox just in case that didn't work.
You have Kirsten in the waiting room?
Yep. Let me grab
I'm
it.
off now, so.
Yeah, nothing you do.
Hold on, let me get back there.
So, Margaret, is it that? microphone that hasn't been muted?
No.
Very fancy.
It's not that.
Fancy
Oh.
planning board
Because
meeting.
we've got HW Cam.
Oh,
Yeah, when I sign on to Zoom, I don't even hit the audio, because Hamilton Cam has it.
oh, okay.
And that works.
Pass it around.
No, you can just grab one, I'll pass.
I'm done.
You're
No,
done.
thank you.
All set, thank you.
Just check.
Got a wedding in 2 months. Son's getting married.
Congratulations.
Your wedding?
My son.
Ah, awesome.
All right,
I'm not
I just
getting
put
it
it on Dropbox, so I'm also going to send you another email with that link,
Okay,
just in
send me the
case the
link to
big
that.
one didn't go through.
Okay. Kirsten, can you hear us? Can you hear us, Kirsten?
Good choice.
Awesome.
No,
This
thank you for
isn't-
asking. Rick offered. I'm all set.
Now I've lost the owl.
That's okay. The owl's creepy.
I'm
like
sorry.
it.
This went so well the other night.
Did it?
It was just so smooth and easy.
Well, I think I screwed us up because I wanted to share my screen, and
You're always
Okay.
then it all went haywire.
a troublemaker.
All right. So let me do this.
It looks like the font will be a little weird, but that's okay.
Okay, hold on. I have to bring this back to me.
Okay, it says it's recording
Who says it's recording?
in the top left.
It is
of the Zoom.
recording, but it seems to have lost the owl.
Okay.
Zooming has
know.
got a lot more complex.
Yeah. Can you reach that on this side?
Well, what do you want?
That
this-
button? Try that.
Yep.
Just came
It's on now.
But get it to be a little smoother.
They're tricky. I think unless you have a dedicated
Okay.
button for it.
That's like all set
HW
up.
Cam, do you guys have to enter the Zoom? Okay. All right, let me admit that.
My God,
There we
this
go.
thing is
All right,
good.
got it.
Got it.
All right, we've got the owl back. Now I can bring up. This. How's that?
Woohoo.
Is that good?
Oh, for me, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm fine. Is everything good with?
Kirsten, what can you see? Hold on. Nope, I need to share that. Okay, got it. What can you see?
We did that. Yeah, we did all of these.
Was that last fall?
This was
Kirsten, can you see Jen's presentation?
There was one at the museum, that's why I remember.
Oh, this like the microphone's down.
I think it's all online, and it's all like slightly.
The owl is up.
Yeah, no, it's great. I was just reading the house.
Margaret, you want me to sign in?
I don't think she heard you.
It's all right, I will anyways.
Oh, are we ready or? Oh,
Excuse me, Margaret, should the microphone be turned off or on this? I'm wondering if that's causing the
Maybe
reverb.
turn it off. Why are you joining, Kathy?
So I can tell you?
Try that now. Is that
hello, hello, hello.
All right.
There's no
Kirsten,
feedback.
How about now? Can you hear us?
I can see the presentation.
I can't hear her. All right. Now turn that off again. Yeah, turn that one on.
I did, I turned it off.
Okay.
Sounds like a spaceship.
That's good. No, it's not good.
No, it's not. Let's wait till it stops.
Kirsten said Jen is producing crazy feedback.
I see that, so,
We just
Okay,
be on person.
so are we still on HW Cam?
Yeah, everything here is all set, so either the microphone is on, or I think it might be really bad.
The owl?
The Zoom coming out of that speaker, the Zoom volume,
okay.
is something wrong?
All right, try now. Kirsten, can you hear us?
Hold
now?
on, what I was gonna say is, let's give this another 2 or 3 minutes. If we can't figure it out, we'll proceed in person with HW Cam. Apologies to Zoom participants, but we're either gonna figure it out in the next couple of minutes or we're not, so.
All right. Kirsten, I'm sorry to keep asking you. Can you hear us and see the screen?
Yes, it seems to be when Jen talks, though.
Hello, hello.
Microphone?
Kirsten, can you hear me now?
Oh,
Yeah.
should we try that?
Oh, you think it's just my mic?
No, it's
No.
not. It's not the HW Cam mics. I had to turn those off for the owl, right? I shut that one off.
The light's green.
Now, Jen.
This light is green, though.
Kristen just asked you to speak.
Yes, hi, Kristen. I am speaking. Can you hear me?
Yes, it sounds better now.
Oh, okay. All right, so maybe we're okay. Okay, so I think we're okay, guys. I think we can resume.
It's a re-recording, Margaret?
Yep.
Yep.
Yes, okay.
All right, good. So let me just say that now that my PowerPoint is on Margaret's computer, the fonts are going to be all messed up. That's why they look a little weird. So if there's a weird formatting thing, it's not my fault. Okay, so let's just go to the next, I think if you go down 2 or 3. We did that one. We did that one, and we're on this one. Okay. Actually, wasn't the survey, I'm sorry. Can you go back?
Back up?
Oh, maybe I skipped that one. Okay. I think I actually skipped that one before. I apologize. Yeah, let's go down one more. All right. So the survey one I was about to tell you was actually the slide after this, and for some reason I skipped this. So it's a good thing we're redoing it. So we received 30 different we call them meetings in a box, but basically 30 different meetings happened all over Wenham through this phase and engaged 166 additional people who otherwise wouldn't have necessarily been engaged to that level of depth. So the meetings in a box go in depth. The facilitators were the Master Plan Advisory Committee members, many of you in the room, I think, and possibly other members too. I think maybe the planning board members also may have helped with this. But the idea was to do a deep dive with folks that wanted to talk for like an hour, hour and a half, even 2 hours about these issues. A little different from a survey where you get very quick responses and some open-ended questions. So 166 participants, that's amazing. Sometimes we run this, and I will tell you, we do get less numbers of meetings in a boxes. So Wenham was very clever doing them at the library and posting them, and it was very, I would say this is very successful engagement effort with the meetings in a box. And so some of the things in the summary I'm passing around, I'm not sure where that went. You guys have it somewhere. Yeah, that it goes into some more depth about what we learned, but just some of the highlights. People, and I suspect you won't be surprised by this. People want to preserve Wenham's character. That's probably why they move here, live here. Encourage strategic development to try to help with tax burden and maintaining and activating Wenham's public spaces, and fostering a strong sense of community as well as embracing diversity. And so those are some of the things that came out of the meeting in a box, what people said. Next one. The next one is the survey. You have 264 survey responses. That's about 4.5% of your residents. And the top priorities, according to these 264 respondents, were economic development, open space and recreation, and sustainability, natural resources, water, and energy. And I just gave you some of the statistics. There's a lot more to the survey than this, but 90% of the residents who answered the questions said that they would consider leaving the city due to high property taxes. 85% of respondents supported mixed-use buildings in Wenham, and they talked about some specific locations that I'll mention in a moment when I show you the map. 77% supported some type of development at some of these 5 strategic locations. 73% supported sharing more services. Specifically, they talked about Hamilton, and you'll see that that's translated a little bit in the draft vision to just regional sharing. 62% of respondents, I should say, supported more business development if it can help offset some of the tax burden or at least generate more revenue. 47% supported purchasing and protecting more open space lands with public funds. And then 42% would like improved town services, but not wanting to increase the residential tax burden. All right, so next one. The next one is about the crowd map. That was basically a map that we had online that people could go in and basically pick a point on the map and say whether they want to see preservation of open space here, or housing diversity here, or economic development here, or if they have other ideas. And so this is just we call it a heat map, and it just shows the where people chose most. You don't know what they chose from this map, but you can just see that a lot of people, the highest choice was around the Wenham commuter rail station, like looking for a combination of things. Some people said we want to see housing there. Some people said economic development. Other people said we want to preserve open space. So this map doesn't tell you what they said. It just says those were areas of a lot of conversations. So we have 66 ideas for general improvements, 63 for economic development, 29 ideas for transportation improvements, and 26 ideas for housing from this particular crowd map tool. Next. Okay, so I didn't want to get in too much detail on that, but there's a lot more detail in that summary. And then that summary has, I didn't print this all out, but that has appendices with all the detailed transcriptions. So for anyone who's interested in really reading everything, there are appendices that go along with that. All right, so let's get into the vision and goals. You can go to the next slide. So first, before I present the draft vision and goals as it stands now, I just want to remind you that this whole process is iterative. So even though we have one draft tonight that might change based on people's comments, we want to go through this next phase, which is really pinning down strategy ideas. And then we want to go back to the vision and goals and see, does this still make sense? Now that we see the strategies, it could be that we need to change the vision and goals now to align. So it's not a done deal until it's a done deal. Next. All right, so this formatting's a little bit messed up, but just pretend it looks perfect. So this is a future vision, so 10 years from when the plan's adopted. So everything is, some of this is maybe how you'd say Wenham is right now, but the idea is you either want these things to stay the same about Wenham, or you want to see improvements, and in 10 years, this is what you want Wenham to be like. And so you might wonder how this came together. So I just very briefly showed you that engagement summaries, just some of the highlights. We also did working sessions with the Master Plan Advisory Committee and the Planning Board, where we actually had them write the vision and the goals. And we came back to them saying, this is what I think you said to us, is it right? And then we went through a bunch of wordsmithing. So that's where it came from. So by 2034, this is overall vision. Wenham is a quintessential small New England town, much like it is now, built upon its vibrant community, outstanding institutions, and sound fiscal policies. We continue to protect our natural resources and scenic vistas and preserve our history while pursuing and welcoming meaningful and strategic economic development. Next slide. This is all part of the overall. I just broke it up because it was so long. By 2034, we are known for our accessible open spaces, walkable town center, diverse housing options, climate resilience, and educational excellence. Our community takes pride in living, working, learning, and enjoying all stages of life in a welcoming town that values inclusivity, sustainability, and community participation. I'm going to keep going so you see the whole thing, and then we can always go back. All right, now that is the overall vision. And then within that, there are 4 core themes that were identified through the engagement process, but also through the work with the Planning Board and the Master Plan Advisory Committee. And so the first of those 4 themes, and so when you think of a theme, you can think of this will translate to a chapter in the master plan that has a set of specific strategies to help create this vision becoming true in 10 years. Does that make sense? So core theme 1, and they did think about the order of these. I wouldn't say it's by priority necessarily, but they did think about, we really want to talk about this first. So core theme 1 is about fiscally and sustainably balanced economic growth. By 2034, so 10 years from now, Wenham has fostered sensible economic development to increase the commercial tax base. We promote and sustain small, locally owned shops, markets, and restaurants, which help maintain our town center. We have strategically welcomed light industry, biotechnology, and professional office spaces adjacent to our major thoroughfares without compromising our natural resources or quality of life. All right, we'll just keep going through. And then associated with that core theme is these 4 goals. And the goals then will turn into strategies that support those goals. So the goals are A, advance priority development, economic development sites to be market ready for development. And you could do that through lots of ways, like zoning. You could do feasibility studies if you own it, etc. B is shape economic development opportunities to ensure developments that are appropriate in scale, design, and use types for the community. C, promote a vibrant, walkable town center and train station area by incorporating a sustainable mix of well-designed commercial and housing uses sensitive to the community's historic and small-town character. And D, strive for balanced, affordable, and fair property taxes with enhanced revenue sources through commercial development opportunities. All right, let's keep going. So the next core theme, so this is 2 out of 5, so you know, is peerless municipal infrastructure and services. In 10 years, Wenham has sought to further regionalization with surrounding communities to ensure sound fiscal policies while providing excellent public services, including a modernized school system and recreation facilities. We have strengthened our cellular, water, and information technology infrastructure to ensure we continue to meet demand, ensure climate resilience, and facilitate responsible economic growth. The next, this is still part of core theme 2, it's just long, so it's over 2 slides. Wenham is known as a communications and engagement leader with accessible and transparent communications that allow community members to easily engage with the community, participate in local decisions, and foster strong connections. We embrace and honor cultural diversity and prioritize equity and inclusion in all municipal processes. Next one, okay, now these are the goals for that core theme. A is achieve community-wide net, this is obviously already a goal, but we wanted to reiterate it here so that everything in the master plan aligns with it. Achieve community-wide net zero carbon emissions by 2040 and become a regional leader in environmental sustainability initiatives. Prioritize green design in all public infrastructure investments. Ensure drinking water infrastructure resiliency and capacity to continue meeting population needs. Welcome regionalization opportunities to promote fiscal sustainability. Strengthen Wenham's community communications and engagement, including through information technology infrastructure, and promote renewable energy use and green infrastructure to support residential and commercial properties. So you'll see, this is a lot of repeating from the vision, but the vision is like a bigger sort of, it doesn't tell you much about it. And then the goals are a little bit more specific. And then when we get into phase 3, the strategies will be, well, how do you do that? All right, the third of 5 core themes is Wenham for all ages. And this has to do with multiple things about living in the community for the span of your life. So by 2034, Wenham has worked to be an inclusive place to live by making investments to improve the quality of life for community members at all stages of life. We actively seek to cultivate community connections and diversify our housing stock to promote more affordable and attainable housing options. Our local zoning regulations are kept modern to prioritize sustainable land uses and encourage and streamline responsible housing development to ensure our housing stock provides provides a variety of options for residents. And the next, still the same theme, we continue to thrive on a strong transportation and social networks. Community members enjoy safe transportation infrastructure designed to enhance options for people to walk and bike to local destinations. Wenham's walkability and bikeability extend independent living, build social capital, and facilitate resident interaction. Residents feel a sense of pride in the community by knowing one another and having supportive intergenerational networks. Okay, next one is the goals for that core theme. And you'll notice we have one placeholder. Sometimes we wanted to encourage you to have some kind of metric to measure success, but we didn't know exactly what the metric was yet because we didn't have a good baseline. But here are the goals as they stand now. Encourage the creation of intergenerational and generation-specific recreation and entertainment events, programming, and gathering spaces. Facilitate diverse and affordable housing options that are appropriate in scale, design, and location to enhance Wenham as a welcoming, supportive, and livable community. Achieve and maintain the state's affordable housing goal of 10% of year-round housing stock being included in the subsidized housing inventory. Promote alternatives to single occupancy vehicle use for local and regional trips by expanding the pedestrian and biking infrastructure by X%. And increasing local transit options. And then the last one, explore regional options to enhance age-friendly public health and wellness resources. Okay, so the fourth core theme, let's go to the next one. Sustainably protecting Wenham's resources. By 2034, Wenham is a sustainable community that fosters community stewardship of our natural and water resources. Our community focuses local efforts on protecting and restoring natural landscapes, biodiversity, and wildlife habitat to preserve open and green spaces. Wenham is a leader in local sustainability initiatives and has implemented resilience interventions to mitigate climate impacts. And then the goals for that one is increase protections for open space by protecting at least X% of Wenham's total land area. So we want to talk about that more and figure out what goal you want to have specifically. Exceed relevant state and federal surface water standards for Wenham's lakes, ponds, and other surface water bodies. Protect vernal pools and wildlife access corridors to ensure sustainable habitat. Promote sustainable landscaping and tree planting practices on both public and private property to to increase pollinator habitat and maintain some percentage of tree canopy townwide. Explore opportunities to responsibly expand resident access to public and private open spaces such as neighborhood pocket parks and the Wenham Canal. Provide alternatives for solid waste disposal, including recycling, composting, and hazardous waste disposal, and then expand local knowledge about conservation and sustainability benefits through education, programming, and signage. All right, we have one more core theme here. So number 5 is honoring Wenham's story. By 2034, Wenham has worked to increase community appreciation of local and regional history and preservation of our historic resources. We work to maintain and activate our historic spaces through marketing and exposure, as well as considerations for sustainable, adaptive reuse that aligns with the town's goals. We recognize that our town's story begins with Indigenous peoples, and our historical narratives include diverse experiences. And the next one are the goals for that theme. So build and maintain a publicly accessible inventory of local resources, historic resources, to encourage local interest in Wenham's story. Promote opportunities for adaptive reuse that continue to honor our history. Bolster historic programming to include diverse histories and interests for all participants of all ages. And protect and preserve public and private historic resources to ensure they remain part of our community's built fabric and story. So I know I just read a lot to you. I hope that wasn't too boring, but I wanted to just get through it and we chose every word the committee thought about very carefully, so I didn't want to skip over too much. All right, next one. I'm happy to pause here. I have the next steps. If you would rather me finish this out with the next steps, I think it's 2 slides. Or if you want to pause for comments, I'm happy to do it either way.
You have 2 slides left?
Mm-hmm.
I think we finish with the slides and then we'll go
Okay.
to comments.
All right. So the next slide is just talking about next steps. And so we'll discuss the public feedback that happens tonight at next week's Master Plan Advisory Committee and talk with them about if they want to make any revisions to the vision and goals at this stage based on those comments, your comments as well as the planning board's comments. And then we also got a few in writing that the committee will have by then. Then next week, we're going to have a Q&A session. The consultant team, we've been meeting to go basically come up with a bunch of best practices for you to consider for strategies that help address the goals as they stand now. Now, if there's a goal that we didn't include that we hear tonight, oh, but you forgot about such and such, then we won't do it for tomorrow's deadline, but we'll add some best practices to help you generate those ideas. But the idea of next week is that the consultant team will be there, our economic development consultants from Cambridge Econometrics, as well as my team. We'll be there to basically answer Q&A, like what are these strategies, why did you come up with them? And then Dan Hodge from Cambridge Econometrics is also going to go through some of the fiscal analysis and the dashboard that he created for the town to do their own kind of figuring on fiscal benefits and costs of different scenarios.
And that date, 7/20, is incorrect?
Oh, that's the old date. I'm sorry. Yeah, let me just say that this date was changed at some point, and I should have caught that. It's actually 7/19, which is Wednesday. The date used to be Thursday, and I didn't catch that. So it is 7/19 next Wednesday, I think in this room.
And Econometrics is going to be?
Yes. Cambridge Econometrics, Dan Hodge is going to be there, and he'll have a presentation on the fiscal piece. And then we'll launch phase 3, which is this. So phase 3 is we take all those ideas. We're going to give you more ideas than you need. You're not going to be able to do them all. So the idea of phase 3 is we start with lots of ideas, and maybe next week the master plan committee or the planning board members, if they also come, public members participating, could also just give us more ideas that we didn't think of. So we start out with lots of ideas is the point. And then the whole process of phase 3 is filtering down. So we have these road shows to all the local boards and commissions. Every local board and commission will, at either a regular meeting or a special meeting, it's up to them, will hear a set of strategies that apply to some extent at least to that board or commission, something that they'd have an opinion on. And those will all be open public meetings. Then public will ask the boards to encourage public comment at those as well. So we'll release exactly what strategy ideas are going to be talked at which committee. So Council on Aging will talk about things that are particularly related to Council on Aging, and Planning Board will talk about things that are probably related mostly to zoning. And so we'll separate all the strategy ideas based on what the board or commission has the most purview over. And so those will all be open to the public. They'll be happening basically starting like late summer all through September and into October. And then we're going to have, after that's done, we'll convene the department managers and show them what we're ending up with. Some of the strategies will probably be eliminated through that process, is my guess. I'm not really guessing. That's what usually happens. And then the department manager's working session is more about, do you have any capacity concerns? Do you have the staff to manage this set of strategies that might apply? Do you think you have funding? Do you need other funding? And start to get ideas about what kind of funding is out there. And we can provide some of that too, but the department managers in their field of specialty can know more than we do in some situations. So we also rely on them to help us figure that out. And then that list may be revised again. It may be revised to include, well, if you're going to do X strategy, then you kind of need more staffing in this department. And so it'll really look at the capacity pieces. And then we'll take it all back to the Master Plan Advisory Committee, show them where we are. We're going to give you a very detailed documentation of everything that was heard at the road shows and the department manager's working session. We actually do exit polls in all of those road shows so that we walk away with data about what they thought of every strategy or if they had other ideas to add to the mix. And then we'll present to you at the end of that a short list of strategies for more public comment and feedback. So that's it. Those are my 2 slides. Phew. So, so I'm happy to go back to any slide people would like me to. And I don't know how you want to run if you want to have the planning board make comments and questions first, or the public.
I'd rather hear from the public at this point, and we can, if we want to weigh in after that, we can do so.
So I can hand over the podium, and I'm happy to come back up for questions. Is that?
That'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you, Jen. So do we still have folks on Zoom, Margaret?
We have Amy and Kirsten Alexander is on Zoom.
Okay, so
Yeah.
people on Zoom, if you'd like to make a comment, I think you have a raise your hand function on Zoom. People in the room, if you'd like to make a comment, please come up to the podium, just announce your name, and are we doing address as well?
Please, yeah.
Yep, just for the record.
Although they don't have to.
What?
Although they don't actually have to.
That, you went to the tutorial.
I did.
My name is Piper, my last name. I live on Maple Street. I would like to know who authorized these three. This is a master plan action committee. Are any of you fellas?
Sorry, who authorized, I missed what you asked. You'd like to know who authorized what?
Phase three, who?
Phase 3.
Yeah, who authorized that?
That is part of the overall master plan process.
Well, who authorized Goldson to do a survey?
So this started back at the April 2021 town meeting, where town meeting authorized a grant, I think it was $125,000, is that right, Margaret?
Yes.
For the master planning process. Then we obtained another grant in the fall of 2022, and we started the process in 2022, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the answer is, ultimately it was town meeting, and then it came to the planning board.
It was an RFP process.
Okay.
Yep.
So the town meeting authorized Goldson's survey?
We obtained the grant money through town meeting, and then the planning board, was it the town that put out the RFP?
An RFP. It came through the select board, I think.
Okay, so the town sent out a request for proposal for consultants, and we eventually hired JM Goldson.
So you hired or the town?
The town.
Meeting hired?
The town meeting authorized the funding, and then the town, through the select board and I believe the planning board at some point, authorized going forward with Goldson, JM Goldson.
Okay. Good enough. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Somebody jumped up just before you raised your hand. You're next.
Jim Purdy, Larch Row in Wenham. Just a quick question. On the regionalization initiatives that you've talked about, have discussions occurred with surrounding communities, or particularly with Hamilton, or is that a premature process at this point in terms of going back and forth on regionalization options?
So I don't think we've had any official conversations with other municipalities. There have been plenty of conversations, and I know in the meetings in boxes, but those were with town residents and meeting participants. But I think the answer is nothing official. Peter, am I correct about that?
Well, we're already doing some sharing of different services. I think, isn't fire? Are we sharing fire?
Assessors and some.
Assessors, inspectional services, right, recreation, library, and schools.
Yeah, we have pre-existing regionalization. I thought you meant, is there any new?
Going forward.
Yeah, okay.
Going forward, will there be an opportunity for discussions with Hamilton on regionalization possibilities? That's kind of where,
That will
that
become
will
a-
be fed into this.
Yes, that will become a task. Eventually, if we get past strategies into tasks, and one task somebody will be assigned probably to go coordinate with Hamilton to find out what they're doing. I know that Hamilton does want to speak to us and work together because they're going through a master plan process themselves. So I know they want to share ideas too, so.
We
And-
did have one meeting with the chair of the Hamilton Master Plan Committee and the chair of the Wenham Master Plan Committee.
Okay.
It was really just an exchange of ideas. We didn't get into any
Any details,
regionalization
right,
discussion, yeah.
And has the Master Planning Advisory Committee reflected on past studies?
The last
I'm
study
gonna
was done,
give this one to you.
the
since-
last study was done 60 years ago.
Yep.
And I know that Jen's group has reviewed it. We didn't, so I don't know if you have anything to add to that part, but we did not review it as a team.
Are you talking about that last master plan?
Yes.
But you're asking, sorry, so you're asking about any regionalization? Sort of like the League of Women Voters did one 20 years ago.
Sue, could you just identify yourself for the,
Sue Petrolia, 16 Road.
Thank you.
The master plan committee.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, so the last master plan we had was 1962,
I understand.
and there have been some other feasibility studies. I don't know if that's what you're...
Studies, I think back in 2016, they looked at like combining different elements. I can't remember whether it's fire.
Fire was done about 15 years ago.
Right.
That was the most major. And then there was a land use study by a former state rep from Wenham and a select board member, maybe about 15 to 20 years ago. I don't know if they have any value now, but just.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Petey, do you want to mention the regionalization water effort that you mentioned last night? No.
Yeah, the North Shore Climate,
Is Bruce Tarr, is it?
yeah, I always get the name wrong. Deirdre, can you remember what it is? North Shore Climate Resiliency Task Force. And it's every town that's on the Itchwich watershed. And he's been at it, I think about a year now or more. I think we started the summer of 2021. And he actually did get every town, including Beverly and Salem, to sign on to an agreement. But it still remains to be seen as to whether we're actually going to get real improvement. But everybody's talking a good game right now.
And I think we had another question in the audience.
Amy has her hand up.
I'm happy to let this in.
Okay. All right, to Zoom. Amy?
Amy, can you hear us?
So it's actually Tom and I here, and so I'll say a couple things, and then Tom.
Can you
might
identify?
want to say something.
Could you identify yourself, please?
Yeah, so this is Amy Starr, and I'm at 41 Pleasant Street. So I just first want to say that we live in a town that's a complete treasure. It is without exaggerating one of the oldest and best preserved towns in the country, and it's been preserved for 400 years. And I think we should be very careful about steps forward. I'm a big fan of things like the English Garden movement, where I think that open space and towns like ours are a benefit to everybody, to everyone in the world, really. I also am a bit worried. I'd like somebody to do some work on how much development would really benefit the town. I noticed that Danvers, which is enormously developed, right next to us, couldn't even put the CPA in because they didn't want their taxes to go up more because their taxes are so high. So, I mean, I just want to make sure that if we put light industry and other things in our open space, that we are going to really have benefit from it. I'm not quite sure how much our taxes will actually go down by putting a big industry in our town. I think too, the plan doesn't really incorporate any aspect of tourism. As we all go to Crane Beach and other places, we notice everyone speaking French and other languages. There's a lot of tourists around, and I think that allowing inns and that sort of thing might allow a lot of people to come to town and do the smaller businesses and change our character less. And I don't see that in the plan. especially when we have the large estates that could be very expensive agritourism and preserve some of those places. I think that's something we need to consider. I'm a little worried about some of the flexible housing things I've heard discussed, because I think we might have individuals kind of getting rich on their places and then the town suffering. So it's a short-term individual profit situation where people are doing well with their house situation, like selling their backyard or whatever, or condoizing their house and making a lot of money and destroying the character of the town as they go, and then we're done. And finally, I just want to say that maybe the consultant finds 10% of the town participating to be a great thing comparatively, but I think we can do better than that. I think that 90% of the town, like the gentleman who just came up and talked on the microphone, not knowing anything about this situation, it persists as a problem. Okay, Tom, do you?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that, just among our circle, we found many people that didn't know anything about the master plan process going on. I think there's just a lot of people who are, going about their lives and not really focused on things going on at town hall, and yet they probably have a strong opinion. I think one thing that might be helpful, and this may be getting ahead of things to the next step, is, if we were to do some kind of sensible economic development, I agree with my wife that, we should see like, okay, this development is going to bring the tax rate down by 1% or not. And also, in other words, not just what the revenue will be, but what the actual end result will be before we make a decision. But also, it would be helpful to know, like, when this is a vision for a certain kind of community, is there a model? Like, in other words, are we trying to be more like Lincoln, or, more like Essex, or more like Weston? I don't know. It just, in other words, it's very hard to kind of envision what the result would be without some kind of concrete example. And maybe there isn't an exact match. But you could say, well, it's like Lincoln with a little bit of filler or something. I have no idea, but there must be some way to make it more envisionable than just the sum of the parts. So I would find that very helpful.
We love the town, but we're the kind of people who are in the opposite thing. We would leave because we lost its character. So we just love it. It's beautiful. I think it's a treasure for the country, not just the region.
This is Rick Woodland. I'd like to address. Go ahead.
Hold on one second, Rick. Is next week's meeting hybrid? Is it available by Zoom?
It will be a hybrid, yes.
Okay. Go ahead, Rick.
I want to address a few. Hi, this is Rick Woodland, planning board member, if you can't see me on the screen.
Hi, Rick.
Hi, Tom. A few things. One, we engaged Jennifer Goldson's team specifically because they don't compare us to other towns. The work they've been doing and the work they're trying to do is to develop a plan based on our input and what we want to see forward. So we don't want to compare ourselves to other towns, but we might be looking at other towns to say, how did they do something, or how did they do something, so we can gain knowledge from them. That was number one. Number two, I was one of the vocal people that really pushed hiring Cambridge Econometrics to do the financial study, because I did some things on paper myself before this process started, and I found in Ipswich, like, this whole thing about New England biolabs and how much revenue that really, everybody seems to love that model for development. It doesn't bring in as much money as people think it does, and it takes up 25 or 60 acres. So they are going to be very sensitive to the risk of development versus the financial reward. And specifically, Jen's team doesn't usually hire that group to come in, but we specifically asked for those kind of numbers. So, and the third thing was, now that you've spoken to your neighbors and friends who are unaware of this process, we'd like to engage them. So please get them on the list, have them go to the town website, look at the calendar of events. We're always posted ahead of time. Have them come and talk, please. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Rick. So, Amy and Tom, I asked if next week's meeting is hybrid because Cambridge Econometrics will be here for the MPAC meeting, and they will be doing a presentation on the economic side of this, so you should be able to tune in by Zoom if you're interested. I agree with you, 90% is better than 10%, but civic involvement is a participation sport, so thank you for participating, and we hope that more people will.
I mean, I think, I said this earlier, I think if there was a mailing to everyone in town, which is easy to do, I did it for WBIS a lot, and
Yep.
just put the stakes in about what this is really about would be helpful.
Yeah, we've had several mailings and we've engaged in outreach, but at the end of the day, there's only so much we can do. And again, I thank you for participating. And I have another question here in the room. Yep.
Thank you. My name's Kristen Noon, and I live at 37 Monument Street, and I'm also the director at the Wenham Museum across the parking lot. And my question is really just to clarify the next steps for these plans. I know so much work has gone into this, and I thank everybody for doing it, because having done strategic planning on the nonprofit side of things, I know how much time this takes, and I really appreciate everybody doing that. I also know sometimes as time goes on, it can be really difficult to implement every aspect of a plan. So I'm just wondering, once we get through the process of really distilling the strategies and we're getting to the point of tactics, who are the responsible parties for really governing and ensuring the implementation of these tactics to make sure that change happens on some reasonably measurable time frame? Yeah.
So I'm going to let Jen take this. Part of the plan is there is an implementation component that is required in the plan. So.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks. That's a great question. You're thinking that at that stage. So, so what we typically recommend to towns, and they may or may not follow our advice, but what we typically recommend is that an implementation committee actually be appointed, whose job it is over the course of the 10-year life or until the next plan is adopted, to meet regularly, update the select board, keep track of everything, we even recommend that they keep the implementation status online. We provide a spreadsheet at the end of this with every single strategy and who's supposed to do what and what the time frame is, where does the money come from, and we recommend that you put that online and that this implementation committee actually updates it quarterly or biannually. You can get into the weeds so that everybody in the community has a lot of transparency about where things are. Now, things will change. 5, 6, 7, 9 years from now, there may be some strategy or technology that we didn't know anything about. So that implementation committee's responsibility is also to try to update that matrix to say, well, we tried this and maybe we couldn't get it past a town meeting, so now we're going to try this other thing and we're updating the strategy matrix. That committee would also be responsible, I think I might have said this, to report, I would say at least annually at a minimum, to the select board, probably report to town meeting as well, put it also in the annual. So we have all these kinds of recommendations about transparency, and so I guess that's probably enough.
All right, thank you, Jen.
I am too concerned that we're coming up with all these great ideas and then there's no cash, right? So that's my concern. So I know that once you get a master plan in place with the state, there is some funding available to help you make these things come true. So I don't know all the details that I'm not promising any of that money, but there are ways to apply for grants, but you need to have that primary document before you can build on that. But I too am afraid of us coming with great ideas and everybody we'll never do this again, right, kind of attitude. Right, yeah, I agree.
Yes, come on back.
This may be my last comment. I don't know. I just wanted to offer that when it comes time to the portion of tactics, that I hope that the Wenham Museum can be considered a valued partner and collaborator in the portion of the goals that discusses our Wenham's history and culture, Our mission statement, includes engagement for multi-generational audiences. So I think that there's a lot that we're trying to do right next door here to Town Hall, and I think partnering with the town, being a more active participant in the conversation would be, a force multiplier for both of us. We have recently been engaging in a lot of our own surveying and preparation for our own upcoming renewal of our strategic plan. I do think with newer residents moving to the community and things like that, I do think there's more interest than I have seen over my tenure as a director in local history. I think there are a lot of newer residents who have moved here and have questions and are curious about things that they drive by. So I think it's a great time to take a look again, at Wenham's history. I think having grown up here, there was definitely a portion of time where it was like, oh, everybody knows that story. We don't need to tell that one because we all know it, but we don't all know it anymore. There are a lot of new residents that don't know. So I think there were wonderful opportunities to collaborate. I love Amy and Tom's idea about an inn or tourism. We are on track to attract 35,000 people a year this year for visitation. It would be fantastic if we had a place for these people to grab a cup of coffee or stay over or do all these different things, and we would love to be a part of that conversation when it happens. So, as a resident and as the director of the museum, I'm, very interested in helping, and being involved. I regret I couldn't serve on this committee. I thought about it intently, but it was the museum's 100th anniversary year this year, so I had other obligations to attend to. But just as things start to unroll to the tactics, I would say please continue to think of the Wenham Museum and reach out to us. So
We might have a vacancy on the MPAC, actually. Do we have an at-large vacancy? Okay.
I don't know if I can do that now, but we'll see. Yeah.
Well, the implementation team starts after this is done. Or you can join that.
There you go. So
No, thank you for those comments. And I'm actually going to piggyback on something specific because you brought up history. So, Jen, on the history slide, we have sort of a generic reference to our story starts with Native Indigenous peoples. I mean, there were specific Native peoples here, tribes and nations or whatever. I think we want to get into a level of detail on that.
Yep, absolutely. Happy to help. So I just wanted to say that.
There are people researching a lot of that stuff individually, so they can be found.
Yep.
They can be found.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Anybody else in the room? I don't see anybody else in the room with a comment. Anybody else? There's still a hand up, or is that Amy's hand from before?
Amy, is your hand still up? I think it's.
No, I'll turn it off.
Okay. Okay. Anything from the board? Peter?
I think it's great.
Rick?
It was a great update.
So I believe we, at the board, we're limited in how many members we can send next week, right? So we need to figure that out to make sure we don't have a quorum.
Or else I'll have to post it as a joint.
Which
I could do that Monday if you choose. More than
we can talk about that later in the meeting. I'm just going to note for the record, I think Ann left the meeting at 7:20 or so.
Yes.
We do still have a quorum with 3 members. So that, Jen, thank you for the presentation. Do you have anything else, Jen, or is that the end of the presentation? All right, thank you. Thank you for the update. Thank you, everybody. Okay, this meeting's going to get really boring because we're going to move into minutes and approving minutes. So
But these go really
Unless you-
fast if you want to learn how the
Wanna take a
inside
5-minute
workings of a planning
Talk to
board.
Jim for like 3 minutes.
Okay, we're gonna take a 5-minute recess
Hey, Jen?
till Peter comes back or 8:15. Well,
Oh,
until
we're
Peter
going to
comes back.
recess? I'll
Yeah.
catch up outside.
recess. We have a quorum. Next item on the agenda are meeting minutes from April 13, May 2nd, June 8, and July 6. Are these all planning board minutes?
Yes, we got behind a little bit.
Okay.
I think the April 13th was a joint meeting with Master Plan Committee.
I thought we already approved those, but,
I was going to go read them, but I can't get into my town email.
That town email's gonna be on.
so I have,
Get into town email.
Oh. I know what the problem. I mean, I know.
I'll fix it on Monday.
I emailed Tom.
Oh, the technical guy?
Okay, April 13th was not a joint meeting.
no, and I thought we already approved those, but,
We would have approved those on,
because we've approved minutes from May.
that was May 2nd. And then I didn't see. All right, so we approved the May 11th meeting minutes,
Okay.
but other than those, we have not.
So I reviewed the minutes. Substantively, they looked fine. There were a couple of typos in a few of them, which I can't find right now because I didn't mark them. But unless we want to pour through these to find,
I do have one. It's Ramona Way, not Romona, right? It's Ramona Way. On page 2 of
Which-
6/8/23. Jonathan Pettit.
6/8, page 2, okay.
do you want to change RO to RA?
I think it's RO to RA. It's Ramona, right? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, on the second page,
Yeah.
Jonathan Pettit, one, yes,
I
Ramon.
must have been 10 points.
Thank you.
All right, so let's just go through these quickly. We're on the June 18th minutes right now. Anything else in there?
June 8th.
June 8th, sorry. Okay, I don't see anything else in June 8th. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? Okay, I'll second. Second to approve the minutes of June 8th as edited. In favor?
Yes.
Aye, unanimous, passes. Let's skip the executive for now. So that. So May 2nd, meeting minutes. Let me know if anybody has any edits.
That's the joint meeting, correct?
Yeah, that's a joint meeting.
Do they have to review those and approve them as well?
They did, yes.
Okay, so if these have been approved, then I move that we approve the meeting minutes of May 2nd, 2023. Do I have a second?
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
And April 13th has been done already?
Do we have April 13th?
I didn't have anything that we did approve those. Catherine, do you know if they approved the April 13th minutes? I didn't have it, so if
don't have them
April
approved.
13th, the next meeting would have been the May, well, May 2nd was that joint meeting, and I don't think we did any minutes at the joint meeting, but it would have been your May 11th meeting. And those were, the May 11th were approved, so I didn't have a copy of whether they, but I didn't see that you had approved those
Okay.
April meeting minutes.
Which ones are you looking at?
This is at the end. This is for April
April 13th.
13.
Right.
And these are just the regular.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does anybody know if the trees have been starting to be planted on Spring Hill? Because it is like that time.
April 13th were held.
Were held. Okay.
They were held, okay.
Any edits?
No, I apologize, the executive session minutes were held.
All
So-
right, the executive session.
So April 13 regular has already been approved.
Yes.
Okay, so we don't need to look at these. All right,
Okay, good.
great. So,
Right?
all right, so that leaves July 6th. Do we have July 6th? I don't think we have July 6th.
Was July 6th an
We
executive
have July
session?
13th.
I thought I sent those to you, did I not?
On page
What day do you want?
Page 3 after the agenda is an executive session, but it doesn't have a,
What
date?
What day do you want?
is this June 8th?
What, is that what you?
Yeah, I'm on page 3
It's
of our
following
packet.
2 of 3. And then it follows 2 of 3. It says the board adjourned from
Oh,
executive
all right,
session.
okay, got ya.
All right, I can pull up the July, these were just the last meeting with the,
So we can
July
table those until
6th.
we get printouts in.
Well, the,
July 6th was the special MBTA meeting.
it was,
When's our next meeting?
June 8th for the executive session, right?
Yeah, I think we've already approved the June,
Executive
you just
session.
did-
we just have to vote to
June 8th.
release.
and then, yeah, you need to vote to release the June 8th. So you just approved them and you want to vote to release them? Because we didn't vote to.
No, we didn't vote to approve the June 8th executive yet. But before we do the executive, I just want to finish with the
All right,
regular, and I don't think we have July 6th in front of us yet.
no.
Okay, so, all right, so let's go to executive session. Is the only executive session in this packet the June 8th?
That you have to approve.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
How about the April 13th ones that were held, were those approved?
we've approved the previous executive session minutes, just not the June 8th executive session minutes.
Okay.
So, let's take a look at, this is page,
Now you're getting me confused, man.
okay, this is page 3 after the agenda.
So,
So let me know if you have any edits. It should be in red line form. This one, yeah.
this short.
I don't have any edits to these. Well, technically, you're looking at my edits.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
will.
Okay, I'm fine with it.
Good, okay.
I can make a motion to approve the executive session minutes of 6/8 as written.
Okay.
Second.
Second, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, they pass. All right, so next item on the agenda is a vote whether to release the executive session minutes from April 13th, May 11th, and June 8th.
Yeah.
Do you have any comments from town council?
It's fine for you to release them.
Yep, the litigation is over. There's no longer any reason to withhold these executive session minutes, so I make a motion that we release the executive session minutes to the public from the sessions of April 13, May 11, and June 8th, which all concerned the lawsuit of Hamilton et al. Versus Weeks et al.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any other matters as may not have been reasonably anticipated by the chair for discussion only?
So I'm not sure if you guys know this, but I'm no longer the select board representative on the Master Plan Advisory Committee, and Deirdre is replacing me.
I did know that.
Okay.
Margaret told me last night, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for
Your service.
pulling triple duty, right? Not just double duty. You're
Got another meeting on 6:30 on Monday for the new elementary school.
oh, good. All right. Should we talk about next week's MPAC
Yeah.
meeting?
That would be
Because
great.
okay. So we talked at one of our previous meetings about limiting our participation in that process to let the advisory committee advise. And I think it was important for us to be at the goals and visioning workshops, but do we know, Rick, are you planning to attend next week?
I was going to take another semester off, so I worked in the first 3 months and I took the winter off, and then I
Okay.
came back, so I'm looking to get back off again.
So,
But I will serve if needed,
well,
but you decide.
I think we can only have 2, right, for next
It's best
week?
if we only have 2.
Yeah.
More can attend, but we would have to post it as a joint meeting, and that gets,
What if somebody wanted to observe on Zoom but not participate? Does that count as,
yeah, I think it still counts.
it still
Does
counts?
count.
Okay, but it's gonna be recorded, so we could watch it
Yeah.
if we wanted to. All right, I think David is planning to participate, right?
I think so. I haven't heard yet
Okay,
positively, but
and
he's been very.
I'm gonna sit next week out, so if anybody else wants to step in for MPAC.
When is the meeting?
It's Wednesday, the
19th?
19th.
This is gonna have I think we should try to have 2 people because it's gonna have the economic breakdown
Oh, yeah,
or
I'd like to see
update.
that, because I was the one that pushed to get that guy to show up.
So do you wanna
Yeah,
go?
I guess I better should go.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
so we're designating Rick and David as our
All right.
MPAC people next week.
Okay.
All right, with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. What is our next regular scheduled meet? Oh,
Is,
with the
Yeah.
caveat that we may have a special joint meeting with the
yes.
selects
Select board, yep.
in between.
We will have that in between now, and then I'll just confirm.
Would it be
when
easier
is.
for us to do that on a Tuesday because they meet on Tuesdays?
Well, I would say you don't want to combine it with their regular meeting.
Okay,
I think this should be a.
so make them,
We actually do that all the time.
Yeah,
So we have FinCom show up for a bit and then they disappear.
as long as
Yeah,
you put us
because
at the
this
beginning
isn't
of the
going to be
meeting.
a bit.
This is gonna be
a
involved.
lengthy
so
discussion.
should we make you come to us?
Everybody's interested.
Yeah,
Okay.
everyone's interested in it. I think
I
there's
mean,
a
you
lot
got
of
Deirdre,
information we
you
have
got
to share.
Ben,
Yep.
Gary, me, and Di. Everybody's interested.
Yeah, so that's why I think it would be good to have a joint meeting with planning board and select board, but on a night other than your regular meeting nights, and this will be the only thing on the agenda. Does that make sense to you all?
Yes, it makes
Yeah,
sense to me.
sure.
Okay.
What is our next regular date?
Let me just get my,
August 10?
Can't wait to get that,
August 10th, yep.
can't wait to
Okay.
get that little spreadsheet all set up.
Oh, no.
So I'm going to make,
Good idea.
The town needs to have one too, like,
Gantt chart.
I'm going to make a motion that we
We're old.
adjourn
Okay.
until August 10th at 7 o'clock in person. With the understanding that we may have a special joint meeting with the select boards before that, with the select board before that.
Yeah, which will
Gonna
be
get it.
properly noticed.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
aye.
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 It's 8:26 PM. Catherine, thank you.